Ghost of Tsushima was mid. For some people who've been following me for a while right now, know that I've said this opinion before, and eventually I hope to make a longer video explaining why I think it is mid. But long story short, I just think that for a game that was promised to be the ultimate send-off for the PS4 generation, did not live up to gameplay, to graphics, to writing, to voice acting, to pretty much any of the categories that we would expect of at least a Game of the Year, a winning award, let alone Game of a Generation. I say this as someone who has been to Japan before and is quite the Japan fan. I will never forget, I saw the first reveal trailer like literally a week after coming from Japan, and it was like the greatest thing ever until I realized that I'd have to wait another 3 years. And now it has been 5 years since Ghost of Tsushima came out. Or at least it's going to be 5 years. I didn't ever get to play the DLC for Ghost of Tsushima, so I don't know if the trailer for Ghost of YOTEI is going to refer to that DLC. I eventually hope to play it. But, yeah, let's get into this reveal. People are already suggesting that it's going to be all manners of woke, which I think is just a generic sort of buzzword that people use whenever they want to dispel the hype around new upcoming titles. So, without further ado, let's see if Ghost of YOTEI is going to be any good. Same particle graphics engine, I like it.
We are beyond the edge of Japan.
Beyond the edge of Japan. YOTEI is in Hokkaido, I don't know about the edge of Japan.
People come north to disappear.
1603, 400 years, almost 400 years, 450, 430 years after Ghost of Tsushima.
But you are hunting.
Really good wolf face.
And now, every Ronin here is after you.
Beginning of the Warring State, well, right after the Warring States period. Beginning of the Edo period.
Still think you're the hunter?
You should have two swords. Where's... This is the Daisho era, come on. You're supposed to have two swords. A shamisen on her back, very interesting. A traveling bard, samurai, perhaps. Mount YOTEI, very beautiful. Oh, there's her two swords. What, does she think she's Musashi? Gonna fight with two swords at once? Is she Musashi? Musashi is already like in his 20s by this point. Born in like the 1683, I want to say. Better. And we can use Tanegashima. Very nice. First thoughts. This is what Ghost of Tsushima should have been. Allow me to explain. See, the beauty of this story, kind of like all the big samurai stories that we tend to find in fiction, is that this is taking place during the Warring States period, or sorry, the Edo period. Long story short, Ghost of Tsushima taking place around the 1270s, time of the first Mongol invasion? First Mongol invasion, there were two. And that was when kind of the beginnings of samurai tactics, they were kind of coming into form, but the big complaint that a lot of people, probably like Metatron and a lot of historian channels had, was that they're using anachronistic weapons. The katana that we're all familiar with from anime and from Jidaigeki films, like from the Warring States period, was a shorter form of the Japanese tachi, the sword, that was worn with the blade side of the sword in the upward position, as opposed to downward for the longer form of the tachi. Again, historical anachronicities aside, basically, we're now seeing, I think, a more fitting setting for a lot of the weapons that they showed in Ghost of Tsushima. We're now being able to use the Tanegashima rifle, more advanced, like, sort of gunpowder technologies. Again, they were kind of being used during the time of the Mongol invasions, and that's like one of the few things that Ghost of Tsushima got right, was that it was mostly a Mongol-type weapon, all these fancy weapons that had come from China and Korea and brought over. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Whenever anything is related to Japan, I've been studying Japanese for over 10 years. I'm still not that good at it though, but I appreciate any sort of attempt to sort of bring this long forgotten setting to light, especially considering that Assassin's Creed Shadows looks like it's going through the tubes. I mean, again, you may be expecting saying, you know, Mev, what do you think of this trailer? There's not really a lot to say because it doesn't really show much that we didn't see in Ghost of Tsushima. My problem with trailers, especially for sequels, is that, with some exceptions, you're not showing me anything that I couldn't have seen in the previous title. Think about the amount of Call of Duties that look virtually identical to every single person watching, whereas of course we know, especially back in the golden days with the original Modern Warfare and Black Ops, they were worlds apart, but most people looking in couldn't see it. What would I expect from this game? Well, again, women being swordsmen was not unheard of. I mean, Tomoe Gozen is the one that people really use a lot, but she's kind of like Joan of Arc, where like people think of, hey, can you mention a medieval knight or a medieval woman at arms? And it's like, okay, I can give you one, and she's the one that everyone thinks about. And she's probably the only one that we have substantial historical evidence for. Apparently, she's going to be a hunter, or so I guess she's hunting rival clans. The guy mentioned Ronin, and I mean, that was a thing around this time. Quick history lesson. So this is right after Japan had basically finished its era of civil wars, and now this new guy named Tokugawa Ieyasu was basically the dictator, comes in and he's like, all right, we're changing this shit up. No more wars. So the samurai class has to undergo a major change. We're no longer just warriors. We have to act like diplomats. We have to act like nobles. We want peace in this country. So Ronin, as you can imagine, they weren't exactly, liked by many people because they're samurai without masters. So maybe she's hunting Ronin. She's a Ronin that's hunting other Ronin. It's very unlikely that a woman probably would have found employment with any sort of daimyo in the far north. To be fair, Hokkaido wasn't really settled until the 1800s, so they kind of have that going for them. If we're talking about like an untamed land north of the borders of Japan, that's pretty cool. Maybe it's kind of like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where like you're part of the icy north, and it's like, yeah, you're part of civilization, but you're a bunch of like, people who live in the snow and ice, and you're a bunch of savages. I don't know. It would be kind of neat actually to have a new instrument, the shamisen. For those who don't know, it's kind of like a Japanese banjo, except it sounds way cooler. Like, think of any awesome song that you loved from Naruto, the soundtrack, Naruto Shippuden. The shamisen was in there somewhere. Like, that's how great that instrument is. Sasuke! Also, that throwaway line where the woman Atsu was holding two swords, and I said, oh, what do you think, you're Musashi? Miyamoto Musashi, a lot of people know about him. He was born in about 1583. He fought in the Battle of Sekigahara, 1600. I'm not going to bore you with the history, but he was the first guy to actually think of using two swords in battle at once. He basically never lost a duel using it, even though his most famous duel, he didn't use them. Mev, you're boring the audience with your history. I know. That's why I was saying that, she looks like she's trying to use Musashi's Niten Tachi style, which is basically using two swords at once to fight, but it's pretty neat. I don't really know what to say of this trailer because, like I said, all of these trailers show a lot and don't really tell us a lot. Like, you ever taken a writing class and were told, like, show, don't tell? This is now going to the opposite end of the spectrum where, like, you're showing so much and you're showing a whole lot of nothing. You're just showing things that we've already seen in this franchise before. Tell us about what she's going to be doing, the type of enemies she's going to be fighting. And as far as I know, this is the only trailer that they've even released, so I'd really love to see a story trailer. I don't really know why a teaser can't be a story trailer to begin with, but I'm not the head of marketing at Sucker Punch, so I can't tell you. I think a lot of more of my ideas are going to be fleshed out once I make that video describing why I wasn't the biggest fan of Ghost of Tsushima. What really frustrates me about most game trailers today is that at some point or another, they all have the same needlessly edgy tone to them. You know, say Ghost of YOTEI trailer, and just we begin with showing a dark forest, a growling wolf, and then say, "You are a hunter," or something like that. It's like, well, you're a hunter, who are we talking to? Why can't we not learn this woman's name? Why can we not learn what brings her to this northern part of Japan? Why can we not learn the enemies that she's going to be fighting? And you could make the argument, it's like, well, we want to show the updated graphics for the game. We want to show the new types of weapons. That's all fine and good if we're talking about a new franchise. But Ghost of Tsushima had pretty solid combat. We're familiar with the weapons we're likely going to be using. Fill us in on the story. Are there going to be new types of places we can visit? Are we actually going to be able to don disguises to actually blend in kind of like Assassin's Creed style? It's always nice to see Japan going in vogue in video games, because I think for the longest time people assumed, well, the Japanese themselves make a ton of video games in sort of fantasized settings of feudal Japan, so that'll be enough. And I'm glad that some Western developers realize, like, no, we can make maybe a more, you know, we can imagine feudal Japan in a really historical context, which that is what I think really a lot of Western AAA companies are good at doing. Look at Ubisoft, for example, with the research they put into Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey. That I think was really phenomenal. But if you're gonna do that, just make a trailer that gives us more instead of just a bunch of nice shots of gameplay. That's all very nice, but like, have that be a gameplay trailer. This is a teaser, and this is the first look we're getting at this new title. Fill us in on the story. Fill us in on the historical context. You know, it's like, if you can just mention the name of our beloved protagonist in the trailer, at least that would be great. Fill us in on why she is in this northern part of Japan. I'm very skeptical in trying to say that it looks good. I don't say that about trailers anymore. I don't watch a trailer anymore and say, huh, looks good. Because the reality is, you can put together a bunch of nice looking gameplay clips for really any sort of new title and make it look good, but that's not really what's going to have people come and buy the game. I think it's going to be the early release reviews, you know, like before you buy, those channels. I think if you're someone who really cares about the culture, you're going to be looking to a channel like Metatron or Shadiversity to get filled in on whether or not this game is actually doing justice to the historical period. It's worth mentioning these companies can make very historically faithful representations of ancient cultures. Again, like I mentioned with Ubisoft. I always thought that Sucker Punch did a decent job with Ghost of Tsushima. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't really... Let me put it to you this way. I felt that Ubisoft did a better job showing ancient Egypt and having us feel like we're in ancient Egypt and have fun being in ancient Egypt than Sucker Punch did. And I'm going to lay out the reasons why in a coming video on Ghost of Tsushima, but needless to say, I don't know what to think of it. I think that if the rumors are true that it's going to be woke, then alright, I guess maybe the early reviews are going to reflect that, and maybe the gameplay will reflect that too, but I don't know. Comment down below. I mean, are you a fan of Japanese culture like me? Do you think that Ghost of Tsushima was just the slightest bit overrated like I do? And are you hoping that Sucker Punch is going to deliver even better this time? Let me know down in the comments. But that's my thoughts, and you can let me know down below. Thank you again, Mevanites, and I'll see you guys real soon.